Hello, welcome to lesson 10.5, two-way tables. And in this lesson, we are looking at completing two-way tables and also using them to find probability. And a two-way table is just basically a way to organize information. So we can actually skip this up here and go straight to number 1. So it says travelers at an airport were given a survey in which they were asked what destination they're visiting, Cancun or Aruba, and how many bags they checked, 1 or 2. So that's what's happening with two-way table. There's always kind of like two different things, right? This one is the destination and also the number of bags. And see how what this is saying. Let's look at this first row. So the amount of people who are going to Cancun checking 1 bag that's 50 people. We don't know how many are going to Aruba checking 1 bag, but we know the total here, right? It says 1 bag and then total. So the total amount of people at this airport or at this, terminal or whatever, is 136. The amount of people who are checking 1 bag at that terminal or whatever is 136. So if I know the total is 136 and I know that 50 are going to Cancun, the rest must be going to Aruba. So that's why I can just subtract 136 minus 50. Okay, and that gives me 86. All right, so if we're missing a total, we can basically be adding, right? But if we're missing something on the inside, these like inside boxes, we're going to be subtracting the total minus the other part. Okay, so let's look at the second row. So see how it says 2 bags, and then there's 16 people going to Cancun with 2 bags. There's 48 people going to Aruba with 2 bags. So how many total are checking 2 bags? We're going to be adding them. So 16 plus 48 is 64. All right, so do we see the difference between when we subtract and when we add, right? Hopefully that makes sense because I'm going to go a little bit faster and not explain every single time now. So from now on, I'm just going to be adding or subtracting. I'll just say it one more time. If it's in the inside, I'm going to be subtracting the total minus the other part. If I'm looking for the total on the outside, I'm going to be adding the 2 inside parts. Okay? All right, so to finish this two-way table, so we've got Cancun, we need the total. So 50 plus 16 is 66. And then with this last box, always this last box in the corner here in every single two-way table is going to be like the same, the total. So I can either go this way or this way. It doesn't matter. So 136 plus 64 is 200. All right, so go ahead and pause the video. Try number 2 on your own. All right, so it says there's 2 preferences, the mascot and the color. So how many students preferred the hawk? So we're going to be adding 25 and 52 to give us 77. This inside box is how many kids liked the eagles in silver. So we're going to be subtracting 48 minus 32, right? Because if we knew this number, we could subtract. But since we only know these 2, we can subtract to get this missing box. So 48 minus 32 is 16. Yes. All right. And now for the totals, we can just add down. So 57, 25 and 32 is 57. 68 is this total here. And then we can either go down this way or down this way. And we get 125. Yes. Okay. So if there's any questions on how to complete it, again, it could be any of the boxes missing, but you're either subtracting or adding to find the missing box. Now for the second part, which is the probability, all we're going to do, just like before, we always, take the value or take basically the amount of outcomes that we're looking for to be at the top. And then we're going to have the total on the bottom. We're going to be dividing. It's going to be a fraction. So let's actually highlight that. We're going to take the value and divide it by the total, just like we did in our other lessons. This time it's just from a two-way table. All right, and then this is an example up here, but we can always look at that later. Let's look at number 3. Students were given 2 choices for breakfast, the choice of beverage and the item. So let's look, and this is already all filled out for us. So now the question is, given that the student chose a muffin, what is the probability that they chose milk? So given that the student chose a muffin, that's going to be the total. So So this, and it could be worded a different way. I think in your practice, they might word it a different way. But the given part, that's going to be your total. So let's just put a little note there. That's our total. So that means on the bottom, it means they chose a muffin. Okay? Like we can put muffin total. And then what's the probability that they chose milk? So if they chose a muffin, so that means they definitely chose a muffin. What's the probability that they chose milk as well? So it's muffin and milk go on the top. Okay? So that's what we're looking for. So how many students chose muffin and milk? Look at that. It's 8. And how many chose a muffin total? So where are we looking? We're looking down here or down here. Well, it says muffin, so go to the total in the muffin row, which is 28. So make sure you look in the right place, okay? So does this make sense? That 8 people chose a milk and muffin. A total of 28 people chose muffin. So it is probably that they chose milk. If they chose muffin, is 8 out of 28. And we're going to take our calculator and divide that. So 8 divided by 28 is, and let's round to nearest 1,000th again, 0.28, and then that's rounds to 6. Actually, this is going to be in delta math, so I'm actually not sure if it's thousandths place. It could be tens place or hundreds place, or they could just want you to keep it as a fraction. If they do want you to put it in as a fraction, 8 over 28 would have had to be reduced to 2 over 7. 2 over 7, yeah. So they might want you to simplify it, just as a little warning here, okay? All right, and then the second part to this is given that the student chose OJ, what's the probability that they chose a bagel? So same thing. So given that the student chose OJ, so OJ should be on the bottom. So OJ total is going to be on the bottom. And that they chose a bagel, so they chose OJ and a bagel. That's going to go on top, okay? So how many chose OJ and a bagel? That would be 54. And how many chose OJ total? That would be 74. And so I'm going to take this and divide. So 54 divided by 74 is 0.72, and then, it's 0.730. Let's box these. I want to make sure that makes sense though. So see how OJ total is 74. So given that the student chose OJ, so 74 of them chose orange juice, right? 54 of them chose a bagel. So the probability that if they liked OJ, that they also liked a bagel is 54 over 74. Just make sure you're putting things in the right place. That's why I really suggest writing the words first, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and try number 4 by yourself. All right, so it says, given that the vehicle was a car, what is the probability that it was used? So the total is car, and the top is going to be used, a used car. Where am I getting those words? This is given that the vehicle was a car, so that goes in the bottom, that's the total, and that the probability that it's used, a used car, that goes on the top, okay? So used car is 38. Total car is 60. We're just looking at the table. That's it to find the numbers. So 38 divided by 60 is 0.633. And if you still need help with like finding where the numbers go, just let me know. But I got used in car because I'm like following each one and they intersect right here. And then I'm finding the total for car because car and total intersects right here. Okay. All right. Last part, given that the vehicle was new. So new is going to go on the bottom. What's the probability that it was an SUV? So it's got to be a new SUV. So new SUV is 41. Total new is 63. We're going to divide 41 by 63, and we get 0.651. Alrighty. So now you're going to try the practice assignment. This is our last lesson of the probability unit. So next time is the test. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in our next unit, our last one for the year, which is volume and 3D figures. All right, bye.